Start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you came to do what you do.
Well, everything really started for me by a life crisis. I was starting my career to be an academic, working on a PhD in philosophy. And while I was doing that, I heard Martin Luther King Jr. give a speech. And it so inspired me that I got involved in the Black Civil Rights Movement at the same time as I was working on my PhD and also teaching philosophy part-time. And I was running 100-hour weeks until I literally ran myself into the ground. I couldn't, and I reached a point where I got sick and I couldn't get better. I had got an infection in my leg and it wouldn't get better. And someone gave me a book on meditation, and I read it, and it made a lot of sense to me in that context. The book was initially a book about Buddhist meditation, where you had to sit in these rigid postures with your feet upon your thighs and so forth. And I found it impossible to do. It was very difficult. You were supposed to control your mind, supposed to control the amount of thoughts you had, that kind of thing. And later, about 3 months later, someone told me about this center where you could learn meditation, and it was absolutely effortless and as natural as breathing. So I went in, took instruction in a type of mantra meditation, and it had such a profound effect on me that within 3 weeks, all of the stress symptoms that I was experiencing disappeared. My infection went away overnight, and it made me really seriously question the career that I had in mind as an academic. So I started delivering personal development workshops that were based on meditation, and I traveled around the world. I initially started just in the U.S., and it spread around California, then to the East Coast, then from there to Britain, from Britain to Europe, and in fact, eventually I wound up in Australia, where I built a fairly sizable organization, and we used to teach meditation and personal development courses to about 45,000 people during the 1980s. And gradually that morphed then into starting to doing corporate programs where we help people with leadership development programs in corporations and government agencies, and also culture change programs. Probably the most debilitating thing there is in a large organization is to have a dysfunctional culture. So we would go in and help them transform dysfunctional cultures into much more positive and much more productive ones. And that was sort of a lot of my career started around meditation and those kind of personal development and then later corporate development programs. Also, in addition to that, in early 1980s, I read a book by Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw called, I think the name of it was Life Extension, I'm not sure. But it was the first book I ever read that talked extensively about the science that was behind taking nutritional supplements. I hadn't used any up until that point except a little bit of vitamin C. But I was very impressed by their writings, and so I started using nutritional supplements along with the meditation that I was doing. And of course, I've exercised all my life. I mean, that's been a part of me, a part of what I've done always. And the nutritional supplements filled in a huge gap, because I was aware of the fact that many studies had been done on the kind of nutrition that was available in traditionally grown foods, the foods that were available in the supermarkets, and they were woefully deficient. So I got as big a lift, I think, from starting to take the nutritional supplements as I did when I first started to meditate. So that became a very important part of my life. One of the difficulties for me is that having read that book, I knew the kind of supplements I should be taking, but it was hard to find them all in one place. So I needed to buy from a lot of different sources in order to get together everything that I wanted. In fact, one of the things that I actually would love to do is to actually create or put together a supplement that would include all the things that I've found over the years to be really essential. And it's helped me maintain my health and basically to age a lot more slowly, I think, than I would have otherwise.
Supplements are a big part of what you do, and you would like them all together. What are the essential ones that you believe so strongly in, you think?
Well, first of all, a general multivitamin that has all the major vitamins that we use, certainly that has to be a big part of it, so the vitamins and minerals that we use. But there's a number of other things. For example, particularly when people reach about the age of 55 or 60, there's a certain hormones that start to drop off a lot. One of them is DHEA, for example. I learned about this years ago, and I've been taking DHEA supplements now, 100 milligrams a day, for about 15 or 20 years. And I know this is one of the things that's actually helped keep me young and healthy. In fact, DHEA falls off quite dramatically after people are about 55 or 60 years of age. I had an actual biochemical test done on me. Oh, this would have been when I was about 70 or 71. I'm currently 78. But I wanted to find out what my biological age was as opposed to my chronological age. And they know pretty well now what kind of hormones tend to drop off when you reach that age around 55 or 60, so they can pretty much peg about where you are. So I went to an endocrinologist. They took the blood sample, and when I went in to see him, he introduced himself. We hadn't met before. We shook hands, and he sat down, opened his folder that had my report in it. And after a few minutes, he kind of frowned, and he looked at me. He said, "You were born in 1936?" And I said, "Yes." And at the time, he said, "You're 71?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "I've never seen anything like this." He said, "You have the blood chemistry you'd expect to find in someone, a healthy 35 or 40-year-old male. What are you doing?" So I told him about the meditation. I told him about the supplements I was taking. But for example, one of the things that people stop producing when they get to about 55 or 60 is growth hormone. And the way they know that you're producing growth hormone is by another hormone in your bloodstream called IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1. And he showed me that mine was actually in the top 68th percentile. And he said that's what you'd expect to find again in a 35-year-old that was quite healthy. It's made a huge difference taking that. There's a number of others that I take. There's one called Epicor, which is for the immune system. And incidentally, once I started taking that, I think I've had one cold in the 6 years since I started taking that. And because of the nature of the work I do, I'm around a lot of people, and there's always someone with a cold around. So I'm exposed to it a lot, but literally only once that I can remember in maybe the last 5 or 6 years since I've been using that. So that's been a very important one for me.
Walter, you mentioned earlier you're 78 years old. You surprised a physician with some of your blood work, and just talking to you now, I think most people that see you would guess that's you're a lot younger than that. What has been able to enable you to keep you going, and what do you attribute it to?
3 things. One thing is I have exercised all my life, and I think that's a very important part of it. The second thing is the fact of meditation. The third is something I didn't really learn about until considerably later than that. It was in the early 80s, I mentioned, when I read the books by Dirk Pearson and Sandy Shaw. But it has a great deal to do with nutrition. And the awareness that I've had for many years now, going back to the early 80s, I really recognized how insufficient our ordinary diet is. It just does not provide the kind of nutrients we need to maintain a really, really healthy and fit body. So I've paid very, very careful attention to nutrition. I've taken a wide range of supplements for a long period of time now, and I never miss those. I do them every day. When I'm traveling, I always make sure I have them with me. I practice meditation every day. I don't miss a single day of that, and I exercise no matter where I am every single day. So it's that kind of triumvirate together that has made the difference. Most people, when they see me, think I'm probably in my late 50s, or some people might think earlier, my early 60s, something like that. I actually feel like I'm 35 or 40 years old. I mean, I feel I have the same energy I had when I was 35 or 40. A day for me is from the moment I get up in the morning until the moment I go to bed. I'm engaged in doing things and making my life meaningful in that way. So the final ingredient in that really is doing work that you love. Because you have to feel that your vocation is your avocation. Whatever you'd be doing, even if you weren't being paid for it, that's what you should be. That's what your work should be. So that's important too. But that triumvirate of the right nutrition, and you cannot get that through just eating the right kind of foods. I mean, I try to eat a healthy diet, but taking nutritional supplements in a major way, meditating every day, and basically exercising every day. That's the secret. And it certainly has worked for me. I saw my father starting to have heart trouble at the age of 45 and die of a heart attack at the age of 65. His life was exactly the opposite of that. He got terrible nutrition, took no kind of supplements whatsoever. He never relaxed, okay, except when he was bowling. That was the only time I think he ever relaxed. And he wouldn't have known what meditation was in any case. He never relaxed. And if you look at his life and the kind of lifestyle that people lived at that time, it's not surprising that he died at that age, and he didn't have to. He could have been like me. I mean, I must have inherited his genes, and yet I don't have any of those problems. So that's it, the triumvirate, if you like.
Walter, you mentioned earlier the importance that you place on DHEA and the benefit to our endocrine system. Talk a little bit more about how that helps and how that fits into what you do.
Yeah. DHEA is actually a precursor to a whole number of other hormones. If you don't have the DHEA, there's a whole slew of other hormones that you won't have, or at least you won't have at effective levels. Now, DHEA has a number of functions. For example, one of the things that it does is it helps to reduce inflammation. So the kind of inflammation that can cause problems in your arteries, as well as the kind of inflammation that can cause problems with your joints, such as arthritis, are reduced. And in people who have, in fact, very high levels of inflammation, their DHE levels are generally very low. It's responsible for a whole number of antibacterial and antiviral, especially antiviral functions. In fact, again, when people are very prone to viral diseases of any kind, and this includes the common cold, flus, things like this, their DHEA levels are generally very low. So high DHEA is very important in fighting off viral infections. Another function that it has is that it's very important to the immune system. It actually helps to keep the thymus gland, which is right behind the breastbone, active and larger and functioning. Now, the thymus gland is the master gland of the immune system. So it determines how many T cells you're going to put out and so forth. And keeping that gland active is critical to anti-aging. And high DHEA levels maintain a very healthy and very active and large thymus gland. There's a huge difference, by the way, in the size of the thymus gland in people who are very healthy who are old versus people who are unhealthy and are old. It's shrunk and become very, very small. So there's a whole number of functions. I consider DHEA, I take 100 milligrams a day, every day. I never miss that. That's a very central factor in anti-aging.